Welcome. This is part 3, the last part of a 3-part podcast with country singer and songwriter and dementia advocate Jay Allen. It's presented to you by Dementia Action Alliance and Maude's Awards. Dementia Action Alliance is committed to helping people living with dementia by enhancing lives, connecting people, and increasing understanding. We are passionate people creating a better society in which to live with dementia through education and involvement. Please visit our website, daanow.org, to view other podcasts, find valuable resources, and find ways to connect with other people living with dementia through our virtual discussion and engagement groups. Maude's Awards is dedicated to the discovery, celebration, and support for individuals and organizations developing innovative programs and practices of care that are enriching the lives of people with dementia and their care partners. Their 2023 award winners will be announced on September 20th. Can't wait to see who it is. Please visit their website at maudesawards.org. That's MAUDESAWARDS.org. I'm happy to host this program with Marilyn Raquel and Mark Timmons.
It's a pleasure to be here, Laurie, really.
Thanks, Laurie. Excited to be here.
Hi, I'm your host, Laurie Scherer. I'm pleased to introduce co-host Mark Timmons, who is living well in spite of his dementia and is an integral part of Dementia Action Alliance. Mark will be hosting our last podcast series with singer Jay Allen. Mark, thanks for hosting this part.
Thank you, Laurie. And I'm honored, and I'll admit a little starstruck, to introduce Jay Allen. Jay, from People Living with Dementia, we want to thank you for giving your time today and for all the love and compassion you provided to the dementia community. You've really been a blessing to us all. If it's okay with you, I want to talk a little bit about your grieving process. I know it's not an easy topic to talk about. And I know you may have discussed some of this in parts 1 and 2, but I think sometimes that different approaches to the same question, it'll resonate differently especially with people living with dementia. So bear with me if this is a little repetitive. Your grieving process, it didn't start when your mama passed away, did it?
No. So they call Alzheimer's, a lot of us know this already, the longest goodbye. And then they also, I remember people saying, be prepared to tell your mother goodbye twice. When she was diagnosed and she, progressed and got sick, it's like you slowly lose them. And then you realize at some point, that's not the same person. That's not the mother that I knew that raised me. And then they physically pass on, and you have to say goodbye all over again. It's like another dagger, like someone stabbed you in the front and then in the back. And that was like, I think for me as a young man to have to just face that, I think my first instinct was actually to not face it. I shared previously, I basically had a drinking problem, to be severely honest, because that is the easiest cop out, is to just drown yourself. If you know me and you're in my circle of close friends, you know that I'll always go out of my way to make sure everyone around me is having the time of their lives. Well, I was trying to create a lot of those moments, whether I was playing a show and partying with people afterwards, or even when I'm in town having house parties. The pandemic was really scary because I probably consumed more alcohol than any human being should. And really what I was doing was not trying to party and have a good time. I was trying to ignore the fact that I was losing my whole world. And I almost lost everything else and everyone else that's a part of my world because of that. I'll never forget that last phone call with Mama. I'll never forget this next moment even more. We had to make that drive back. After I actually woke up at 5 a.m. we found out that my mother had passed at 3:30 in the morning. And I was the last person to fall asleep out of all my family. We kind of like did the math, and I'd fallen asleep or blacked out pretty much at around 3 a.m. And she had passed at 3:30. So I kind of felt like, in a way, I don't know how she instinctually knew to wait until all of us were at peace until she went to rest. But she did. And so it had been that whole weekend we've been playing shows. It was like the weather was terrible, absolutely terrible. That morning, that drive from Savannah, Georgia to Nashville, Tennessee, that entire day, it was like the most beautiful setting. The whole drive there, not a cloud, the bluest, most beautiful sky. The sun was beaming. Everything seemed more colorful. And I don't know if that was really actuality or if that was just my experience, but that was my experience. So I sat in the front seat in the passenger seat of our tour van while one of my band members drove us all the way. And the guys were so respectful and didn't say a word. And I literally just looked out the window and bawled my eyes out. But I also felt like so connected to God and like a sense of peace that she was okay. Like it was almost like he was painting a picture of heaven for me to kind of maybe in a way experience what she was experiencing. I don't know how to describe it, but I remember coming home and Kylie, she wasn't downstairs, so I ran upstairs. And it was the end of the day, and my mother's favorite color, I remember since I was a kid, it was always purple, which I thought was odd later on because the color for the National Alzheimer's Association is purple. And like purple, like my world has been painted in purple ever since. But I'd never seen this in my young lifetime. But I walk upstairs and Kylie's just standing there looking at me. And I couldn't even look at her because I was going to bawl crying again. I walked straight to our balcony doors and I look outside and the whole sky was purple. There was this beautiful all purple sunset. And it was like, I don't know, like it sounds cheesy when I say it out loud, even when I'm thinking it in my mind, but it was like God wanted to say, hey, I got her. Like she's okay. And my wife just held me and let me cry in her lap, and that was kind of the beginning of the next phase of grieving for me. I've learned along the way, everyone has their own way. We're all designed and wired differently. We have our own way of grieving. We have our own process. We have our own timeline. For me, unfortunately, it took a lot longer than I think it does others. Really, really dark times. Like I said, even after that, I went through a phase where I almost at one point lost Kylie. I was being just a little jerk. And I was not being a great big brother and not being a good son and not being a good friend. But, I shared the moment in the previous podcast where I had a moment where I was at a bar by myself and I said some really angry things to God. And, man, he pulled me out of it. He met me where I was, and kind of just set me on a new trajectory. And I've been fighting to stay on that ever since. And I will have my moments of weakness, but man, my faith has never been stronger. And I kind of have taken that sense of loss and turned it into greatness, and now I get to share this story with others like you, and we get to relate, and we get to realize, hey, we're not the only ones that experience loss in this life, and we can find beauty and power and strength and goodness through our greatest loss, so here I am to share that.
That's nice. I smiled when you mentioned, having that loud discussion with God. I told a story recently in one of our discussion groups of how I'll lay there at night and be yelling at God. But then in the morning, when I pull out my journal to start journaling, first thing I'm doing is listing the 5 things I'm grateful for. So,
yes.
Painted in Purple sounds like it could be a song title in the future.
Yeah, I gotta work on that one.
So, so where are you now today in the process, in the grieving process?
I think I'm on the back end, to be honest, which is not, if any, if you or anyone else is listening to this and they're not, and they're in the middle of it, or they're just starting it, this is not to say, oh, I figured it out, because it took years for me. And like I said, some days I feel like I'm barely getting by or I'm slipping. But yeah, I think I've made it to kind of the other side of the grieving. It's almost like, if you make it through, it's like running a marathon and you cross the finish line. You feel this sense of like, I can breathe. And, now I can, put the picture on the wall that I got through that, and that's kind of where I am. And because I did choose to face the fire instead of give up, which unfortunately there's a lot of people that don't make it through the grieving process, and they give up. And I want to do everything in my power to make sure that that doesn't happen to the next person. So I will share that there was moments where I thought I'd never get through, where I wanted to give up. And through tears, had to share those moments of weakness and terror with my wife. And I'm thankful that I did, because she was one of the many people in my life that would put my life to help me get through it. But now, because I got through it, it made me like this fierce soldier, where even on my hardest, darkest days, I just feel like nothing's going to break me down. Nothing's going to beat me. I have an actual angel with me every day guiding me. And because of that, my character is what it is. And, I feel like I'm a pretty dang good person, and a good husband and good brother and good son and good friend and leader and all these things. But I couldn't be those things if I didn't choose to face the grieving process. All of us are going to have to face it at some point. And if you do, I just encourage you, fight with all your might and start over again every single day, because there really, truly is a silver lining. And I found it. I could not be happier.
Well, those are great words. And I really admire, not just the words in your music, but, your character that I'm seeing today. So, but I want to flip the script for a moment when it comes to grieving. We often think of grieving or look at grieving from the perspective of the care partner. But as an individual living with dementia, I can tell you that we ourselves go through the grieving process as well. We grieve the loss of who we used to be, the abilities that we used to have. We grieve a loss of sense of self and of individuality. And we grieve over no longer feeling like we have a purpose. And I know Laurie spoke a lot about purpose in the previous podcast. But I'm curious to know, while you were your mom's care partner, what were some of the ways that you helped to show her that she still had purpose?
That's I'll be completely honest, Mark. That's where I feel like I failed. I've talked about my regrets in the past, and now my encouragement to others is instead of being with her and like, she didn't know that I was on the road talking about her and singing Blank Stares every night through tears. All she knew is that she didn't have a son that was with her every day. So that is my biggest regret. Not so much a regret anymore, just, I could have done something different, but I also, was on the sidelines watching my little sister be her care partner. She had to do and see things that a daughter should never have to do and see, to the point where my mother, couldn't shower herself, couldn't take herself to the restroom. So my sister was the one that helped facilitate that. And for us, I think it happened so quickly. There was no like reminding our mother that she still had purpose. It was just trying to take advantage of the moments that we had. I can't imagine feeling like you're slowly slipping away. I've heard people describe it as like sands through an hourglass, and you just can't stop it. You can't turn back the clock. But I I will say this, what I do know is that I am completely blown away by you, my friend. The fact that you are experiencing this disease yourself and you're still taking the time you're flipping the script and you're trying to utilize this moment in time in your life to help others. So you're doing it, like you've said such kind things to me about me and my character, but I would flip the script and put it on you. You should be so proud of yourself. You have a purpose right now that expands past time, past this life on earth. It expands into eternity, what you're doing right now. So, man, you found it. You're doing it, so yeah, props to you.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. A lot of finding my own purpose came through my involvement with Dementia Action Alliance. So I'm going to pass the credit on to the organization because I myself was not sure where I was heading after my diagnosis. So I know you've talked about how you rely on faith in your songwriting as part of your grieving process. I lost my own dad in 2018 to dementia. From diagnosis to death was inside of a year.
Wow.
And so he went fast, like I know your mom went fast too. I lost my youngest son, who was musically gifted. He was a prodigy violin player. At 26 years old, on September 8th of 2022, to mental illness. So I've had to learn my own ways of dealing with my grief. And just like, you rely on faith and you rely on your music, I relied on listening to music, but in writing, in journaling and writing and poetry are what I use. So what suggestions would you have? What advice would you have for people that are in the grieving process? What are some suggestions on ways they can navigate through the process?
Yeah, it sounds like you're already doing it. Expression through art, has been for me. For you, it's that as well, and listening to music, and finding those things that give you a sense of just peace, but also being careful not to seclude yourself. I found when you need alone time because you need to process, you need to really be alone with yourself. But there's also a such thing as having too much alone time. For me, the biggest moments of healing and growth was when I did this. I was kind of forced into a position where I've had to tell my story over and over and over again. And like I said, it used to feel like a burden, like almost like I wake up every day to a new nightmare. Now it's like, no, it's the opposite. Those are the moments, where, I'm having to relive it and tell it all over again. Those are the moments that actually created healing, and recovery, and massive growth. Every time we shed a tear, it's strength, not weakness. So right now we're having a moment of healing, which I do not take lightly. And that's why I say yes to all these conversations, because I'm not only growing, but everyone, a part of this podcast is growing. Everyone that's watching is growing, so yeah, music has been everything to me. If I didn't have my time, like I spoke about previously, of worship, for me, it's specifically when I'm in the gym with my headphones on or on a plane, and, I'm cranking up my worship music, and that is my serene time alone. But then also just sometimes I need to just just cry in my wife's lap. Sometimes I need to have a phone call with my sister. Sometimes I need to talk to a stranger. Sometimes I need to be on stage and pour it all out all over again, So you really have to find your own mechanism, and it's trial and error. But we all have it, and you have to do it. Otherwise you lose yourself. And there will be no silver lining unless you face it. So
Yeah.
find your thing through trial and error. For me, it's all the above. I'm having it right now with you.
Yeah, I can totally relate, about your comments about isolation and seclusion. That was a big mistake I made a year ago after my son passed. So, um, oh, I noticed that you recently had a song that was part of a PBS documentary, Unconditional. The song is called "Break from Broken." That came out in May on PBS, and you can watch it streams on PBS over the internet. So what else do you got going in? What else do you have coming down the pipeline? You're doing all these amazing things.
Yeah, so it takes an army to accomplish anything good. You can do so much on your own, and God utilized me to do a lot of things on my own, or I felt like I was on my own for quite a few years. But really, I decided to finally take a chance on myself. I heard this saying, unfortunately, when I was, going through the grieving process, but also trying to um, make my wave of impact in the world to shine light on the conversation about this disease specifically. I also had people working against me. Unfortunately, there was some negative in my life. So I heard a phrase, someone said to me, fire the negative in your life. So I finally made the choice to do that, and then finally pick up the phone for NBC's The Voice. And part of the stipulation I had to go on that show was let me sing this song I wrote for my mom and let me tell this story. And they told it in a way that was so beautiful and so epic. I could have never expressed it like that, on my own. After that, I saw myself. I remember sitting in a room with my wife next to me, all my good friends and family. And I watched myself on TV. And I think that is the very first time I truly believe that I am worthy, and that I can be this guy. I can be an artist, and I can take it so much farther. And so I came out the show, it aired, and I get a phone call from the head of a record label, and he came to Nashville just to meet with me, and over a glass of wine, he offered me a record deal. Eventually, I said yes and signed that deal. And I remember one of the first conversations we had with the label. They said, "Jay, you were, this guy that's, done this big, massive thing, and you've released all these heartfelt songs and touched people around the world and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. But like, you're also this guy that's like so much fun and so full of life. They're like, what if you can help people by just like being that? And you can continue doing what you've been doing, but also where's all the fun songs?" And they're like, we want to hear the most fun song you've ever written. And so I was like, all right, game on. So as a joke, I shared with them a song called Jello Shot, and they loved it. And so they're like, let's make a music video. So we made this hilarious music video. Now I play it live. People come to my shows. We just played all these shows in the UK. People showed up and they knew every word, and I'm, even though they come for this time of healing, which I always present towards the end of my show, most of my show is me in the crowd dancing with people and like rocking and rolling and having the time of our lives, So, and now we released another fun song like that, and I got another one coming down the chute. I'm releasing a duet with a big country artist named Ray Lynn here at the end of September. Now we have a radio team, so we're trying to be really strategic and how could I get a song on the radio maybe next year. And for me, I'm so thankful it's happened this way, because I think a lot of artists, I've experienced and seen in Nashville, kind of sitting side stages. A lot of artists, they come into this for themselves, and then they try to find their purpose, and it ends up not going so well, and it ends up pretty empty. For me, I have a purpose. And like I shared, the loss of my mother's life gave my life purpose. So now I feel really confident that I can go into this next season and have a lot of fun with it and not lose myself and continue to help other people while I'm having the time of my life. So that's really the trajectory and the plan is to rock and roll and create a party while continuing to create a safe place for people to do the same, find hope and light in the darkness.
Sounds like a good recipe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you got to find a way to come up to Massachusetts. I have to see one of your shows.
I would love that. My friend. I don't know if it's the time, but I have a guitar here if you want to hear a song.
Absolutely. And I'm waiting to come to Alabama. So
Sign me up. I want to go everywhere. To wrap this up, if y'all don't mind, I'd love to share Blank Stares with y'all acoustically. I do have my guitar here. It's a 47 Gibson that we have in the house that never gets to leave the house. So I only utilize it for special moments. So I'd love to give y'all Blank Stares if you don't mind.
Thank you, Jay. Jay, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so honest and so open about your journey, especially on this part of the podcast about your grief journey, because I know it's never an easy subject to talk about. I'm grateful that you were willing to share this part of you. I know I personally benefited from this conversation, and I'm sure so many other people that'll be watching this podcast will feel the same way. Again, thank you for your time, Jay.
Back at you, Mark. Thank you so much for having me. Keep it up, my brother. Keep fighting. You got this.
Marilyn.
Thanks, the team.
And thank you, Jay, on behalf of everyone who is a care partner, everyone who's living with someone who's living with dementia. You've given so much love and so much encouragement. It's just been really sort of life-changing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so sweet, Marilyn. What a pleasure speaking with you. You have such a good spirit.
Your message to fight and fire the negativity, these are such important messages for people living with dementia and care partners. Jay, I thank you so much for spending time with us and for all your encouragement for people in the dementia community and all the time you give for us. I'm waiting for you. I'm only an hour and a half from Nashville.
Okay.
You come to Alabama, so I'd love to actually meet you in person. But from all of us at Maude's Awards and at Dementia Action Alliance, we thank you very much for spending time with us.
Thank you for the invite. This has filled my heart today. I didn't know that I needed it, but I did. So thank you. And thank you for all your hard work, Lori, Marilyn, Mark. Y'all are three saints. And I look forward to hopefully meeting y'all in person soon. Keep up the hard work.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. And
Thanks.
for those of you listening to this podcast, thank you for being with us. It was a privilege to be able to spend time with Jay and to be able to allow you to hear this podcast. So thank y'all, and we'll see you around the next time. DAA is a nonprofit 501c3 corporation. If you would like to help us continue this and other programs to support people living with dementia, you can make a donation through our website, daanow.org. Thank you.
Chase a dream, chase a girl. Say a prayer, take a trip. Don't hold your breath, hold your kids for they're too big. Cause it can fade in a minute, no matter how you spin it. That clock keeps ticking, it can stop on a dime. Be careful how you spend it.